Hello, everyone. My name is Arjun, and welcome to today's session on leveraging AI for your career growth.
Hi
I
Arjun, hello
see.
everyone.
Hi, Sharmila. I see you're here, and I believe Nikhil has joined us as well.
Hello, hello. How's it going?
Great, great. All right, we'll just give this another minute or so for people to start joining and then kick this off. All right, I think people have started joining, so I'm going to officially kick this off. Um, I'm very excited for this workshop because I think the topic for today is something that has been on everybody's mind recently. Which is how do we actually leverage AI for our own personal or professional growth? There's been a lot of buzz around the new tools that have come out like Bard, ChatGPT, and plenty of other tools that have existed in the market. So we'll talk about all of that. But first, I just wanted to do a round of introductions for our speakers today who are here in the house. So welcome, Sharmila and Nikhil. Thanks so much for joining us today. Um, we have been discussing about doing this workshop and what all we are going to cover because there's just so much to unpack. So we'll get into all of that. But first, just quickly, Sharmila. So I believe you are currently an AI consultant at Google, where you advise other organizations on how they can harness the power of this new revolutionary technology to achieve their business goals. um, Very tech oriented role, I would say. And then we have Nikhil, who is slightly or more on the non-tech side of things, I would imagine, but still regardless, leveraging AI for making a deep impact in your company and in your for your clients. So you're leading currently the brand and marketing at Even. Uh, Thanks again, guys, for joining me. Maybe you can just share quickly a bit about yourself and what you do currently at your company. Sharmila, can we start with you, please?
Sure, Arjun. Hello everyone. First of all, good evening, and I'm glad to be present here. Thank you, Arjun, for the opportunity. So I'm an AI consultant in Google Cloud. So typically engage with customers, lead customer engagements from right from the beginning scoping till the end, till they achieve their business outcome using machine learning. And yeah, have worked on multiple industries, and primarily my work is around that. Yeah. Thank you, Arjun.
Yep. Hey everyone. Thanks for joining in on Thursday evening. My name is Nikhil. I'm currently I head brand for a startup called Even Healthcare. But I've had a fairly decently longish career in the world of marketing and advertising. I've been in an advertising agency for almost close to a decade. Then was in Uber looking at their social media content, digital media, etc. And now at Even. So very, like Arjun said, very far away from actual tech work, but usually always in tech companies. Um, but yeah, super glad to be here. Thanks for having me over, Arjun. And great to meet you, Sharmila.
Great. Nikhil? All right. Thanks for that. I think that was very helpful. And just a quick round of intro from my end as well. So, I had this startup platform called Pivot, where we basically help people make career transitions in a smooth and successful manner. Our focus is on helping people who are changing some key aspect of their domain or industry. So we'll get into that as well during the course of the session. But now back to the topic. So AI, right? I think AI has been there for quite some time. Sharmila, I think you would agree with that. It's not something that's very new, or as much as it seems like today, but it's the generative AI that has recently taken the world by storm and made everybody think about how they can leverage that for their personal advantage or a professional advantage. Right? Everybody's aware of ChatGPT, Bard, and a couple of other tools. And there have been others that at least I'm personally aware of, like Jasper and Copy.ai and all of these. Um, and these are only the ones we are talking about from, content and marketing standpoint. There are plenty of AI tools or generative AI tools that exist out of that industry or that specific use case. So, if we just kick this off maybe by discussing what is the, overall potential of AI, of generative AI specifically, in impacting the way we work today, right? There's a lot of chatter around, people saying, well, it will enhance our capabilities the way computers or calculators did. And then there's a lot of talk around how it can potentially even replace jobs, like, for example, content writers 5 years down the line might be facing challenges to find the right jobs because technology can be used to do their work. Um, so to cut through all the clutter, Sharmila, maybe you can just enlighten us a little bit about like what you think is the core potential and capability of this new tech.
Sure, Arjun. So AI and ML has been in the space, right? So for almost like few decades, the past few decades, we have had we started with machine learning, and then we went ahead with deep learning. We have had RNN, CNN, neural networks, and so on, right? But the recent hype around generative AI, the capabilities that it is able to generate human-like content, human-like conversations is what is catching everyone's attention. But it is still in the very initial phases is what I believe. And generative AI is not just about text, right? You could generate images, you could generate audio, video as well, right? So there is a wider spectrum that we are seeing today, and we are just at the tip of the iceberg. I strongly believe that in the upcoming years we will have lots to see, and this hype will actually reduce a bit. If I'm not sure if you're aware of the illusionment curve, right? So firstly there's hype, then the Gartner cycle goes up, and then after the hype comes down, that's when you realize, is it adding real business value? What can I derive? What can businesses derive? How can we make money out of it? Only when you understand that, only when you ask the right business question and understand that, okay, this technology can be converted to this use case to make money, to generate revenue, that's when it we are able to see the real worth of generative AI. That's what I believe, Arjun.
Initial hype phase right now, and there's a lot of excitement because people haven't seen anything like it. But I think there is a lot of time for the tech and the industry to mature and realize how exactly it will impact the end goals for people and for organizations. I think that makes a lot of sense. Nikhil, as somebody who is potentially leveraging this technology for doing the day-to-day work, or perhaps your team is at least leveraging it. What have you seen change in the way work is being done by you and your team since the advent of this tech? Have you guys already started using it for day-to-day work, or is it just something more hypothetical and abstract at this point?
Yeah, so I think great question, right? Like one of the core things that has started happening is just this whole narrative around how it's going to replace a lot of the marketing jobs or a lot of the creative jobs, which I think is I honestly like I'm not Nostradamus, can't predict the future, but I think that's a little bit of a far cry, right? Right now, we use a whole bunch of different AI tools across the across my team, and it's now currently being used to help take a lot of the mundane stuff out. There are certain formulaic approaches that we can use AI tools for and reduce a lot of the workload, which otherwise would have taken up a lot of mental bandwidth, right? And especially for a creative person, a lot depends on their mental bandwidth, and a lot of the quality output depends on how free they are and from mundane tasks, and I can actually focus on the better things in life. So we are, like I said, we're not running away from it. I don't think there's any running away from it. We need to embrace it. But I also think saying that it'll replace human beings is a little bit of a far shot, right? This is the same thing. So I think the world is in the same place where we were during the Industrial Revolution, when the first machine was invented to make a product, everybody thought that, hey, nobody's going to have a job anymore. But what it did was helped create a different kind of an industry or a different kind of a job for people. And I think that's something that will happen with AI as well. Again, like I said, I'm not a tech person. I don't know how the world goes, but nor am I a Nostradamus kind of a person. But the fact is, I think we should not be very scared of it, rather figure out how to embrace this new technology in helping human beings perform better, perform more efficiently, and be able to like take a lot of the mundaneness out of everyday work. And I'm seeing a lot of very interesting examples and applications of whether it's a product like ChatGPT, which is everyone's favorite, or whether it's something like a DALI or a Mensa or a Lensa or a Midjourney, where people are scared, will designers get replaced by just prompts, right? That's not going to happen. I think there are unlimited possibilities of human imagination, which I think it's still worth a shot. Yeah.
We started using it in some form fashion to automate some of the more repeatable and mundane tasks on a day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
right?
A little bit. And I think, sorry to cut you off there, but like I also feel like with generative AI, right, a lot of it is what you make of it. And there are so many interesting use cases people, at least I've seen in whatever little capacity I've kind of used, where it's pretty interesting to see how people are using it. Like some of my team members actually use a platform like a ChatGPT or a Copy.ai to break out of, say, a mental block or a creative block that they have. They're not necessarily using it to write a full thing, but they're like, hey, give me some inspiration around an X topic. And I thought that was a very interesting use case of using this to further your quality or help you out when you're stuck, rather than just, like I said, just prompting, write me a 1,000 page article on XYZ.
Experimenting it in areas where they feel the need for such a tool is the highest. So makes sense. And I think the potential for what this tech can do, as Sharmila pointed out, will only mature and kind of gain more clarity over a period of time. Something you talked about, Nikhil, around like people using this to clear their mental blocks when they're writing new topics and new things. I think it's a good segue for our next topic here, which is how can AI, generative AI specifically, be used for both your productivity at work and perhaps in your personal life as well, for your overall learning, growth, development purposes. So we know a lot of these tools have come up and people are already starting to use them. So perhaps we can, Sharmila, if you could share a little bit about like how people should start learning about the different tools, AI tools that are available to them in their field, whether they're in marketing or they're, let's say, an engineer who wants help on writing clean code for their products, or perhaps some other field like maybe finance or accounting. So how do people discover the right tools in their field, start learning them so that they can make an impact at work for sure? And perhaps if you have seen any personal use cases for AI which has led people to just declutter their life or use it advantageously for themselves.
Sure, Arjun. So here, I mean, you've asked multiple questions, right? So how can we increase the productivity at work and at personal stuff as well? How do we discover the right tools, right? Let me take the first question first. So how do we increase the productivity at work? So let me take the let me make an assumption here. The first assumption is that we are talking about an IT professional who writes code, or a team lead or a manager who manages the team, right? So a professional who typically writes the code, right? So you could just write one statement that give me the code to write a website, or to design the website, right? And then it gives you the code. So code generation is one thing, and many a times times while writing code, we hit error messages, right? And then the first thing that we do is go to the Google search and then search about it, and then you get tens of links. You go through one by one. Here instead, we could just help or take these generative AI tools that are available, and then identify what's the bug that's available. And not just that, it's not just the IT professionals, right? In case if you are a researcher, and if you want to read research papers, so typically typically in our field, right? So we read a lot of research papers, read them, understand them, and then implement them. So in order to read 20 pages and then tens of research papers, it definitely consumes a lot of time. So something that can summarize that, so that will really help us speed and help us in our productivity. And in case if you are a manager, right? And if you are in the year end, and you want to think that, okay, how do I allocate my budget? I am a manager for a financial company managing this team. Is there any other option that I could improve my team's productivity? Are there any new use cases that my team can build? So such sort of open-ended questions can be asked to these Gen AI tools. So I've typically seen my friends ask such tools, and then getting good responses, and then they take the among the top 10, they take the top 2 probably, and then go ahead, brainstorm on it and think ahead. So definitely these Gen AI tools uh, can be used, but there are definitely a lot of pitfalls. I have collected them. Probably, Arjun, we could discuss them later. But we could that they can definitely be explored. And regarding discovering the right tools, so in I mean, with all this hype, I'm really seeing lot of tools in different segments, right? Text, images, videos, audios as well. Lot of startups are coming. So I think the only way to be updated is to read, is to search. I mean, there's not a single site that actually tells that these are the top 10. They could be top 10 right now, but tomorrow they could be outdated. So we have to constantly update ourselves. And yeah, that would be my take, Arjun. Yeah, thank you.
For you, and perhaps we can contextualize it more in the in the marketing and content realm that you focus on. I mean, there are a ton of tools today, especially for content and marketing. Obviously, I mean, ChatGPT is the one that's really made the waves recently. But like we discussed, before ChatGPT was there, there were plenty of other tools that people were using. And what was interesting is Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, he recently was quoted saying that ChatGPT is a cool new technology, but it's a horrible product right now, the way it exists. What that means is he understands it's a very vast, open-ended sort of a product. There are plenty of other tools that are doing probably a better job, in helping content marketers write a very specific sort of content. So, how have you or your team seen, these various applications and products being evaluated to identify the one that works best for you, and then used it for greater productivity, like I said, in your personal life as well as work?
Yeah, you're right. Since Sharmila's on the panel, I'll say, yeah, ChatGPT is horrible and Bard is the future. But I think honestly, like, this whole recommendation engine built around AI tools is a little bit of a no person's land right now, right? Because like Sharmila said, you search for the best AI tools, there'll be 10 websites telling you 10 different tools. It's very difficult to kind of figure out what is the best, right? Like, yeah, ChatGPT got a lot of course, hype because of just how well the engine is designed, and how interesting it was to see. But I think there are others that will suit your particular use case at one particular time, right? So, for example, for us, at least in my, like, the last few years, I've seen a lot of my friends and a lot of team members use copy.ai a lot, because what it does is, like, imagine I have a great copywriter who is amazing with their advertising copy, and I can use them for a lot of my campaign building, but they're stuck writing a boring B2B sales email, for example, which has a format, right? I just want to say, salutations, here's my product, here's where you need to call, and that's about it. A lot of that is generated through, a thing like copy.ai, or a lot of my design friends use Midjourney or Lensa to just kind of keep coming up with inspirations. They'll just throw a random phrase out and see what the world is producing and see where they can go from there. I've always seen it used as either a replacement to a task nobody wants to do, and you're wasting a lot of bandwidth on, or use it as a source of inspiration that can drive you further, or you can elevate that idea to something completely different. And that's, yeah, that I've seen as like two very commonly used kind of use cases. People working on Copy.ai, ChatGPT. I personally have used DALI. I'm not a huge fan of the interface, but it's interesting how it operates. Or even Midjourney. I think these are some interesting ones that are happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, for me, I think, and I this is a segue to a further question that you had, but there's also a lot of, at least in the creative field, right, that's where I operate. There's also a lot of kind of conversations around the ethics of using AI to produce final products, right? As a person who's like, I like to think I'm a little creative in life, and if tomorrow, and I'm a musician as you know, as a hobbyist. If I had to write a song, I'd kill myself if I had to steal something. If I'm true to my craft, right? Yes, I can use it as an inspiration. Yes, it can tell me about the sights and sounds of the world that I don't know. But at the end, the final product I need to make myself. That's where a true creative person also holds their craft to, you know, to test. So I think that's some of the things that I've seen also being talked about a lot in our locker rooms. But I don't know if like that answered your question in terms of what kind of thing we're doing.
Yeah, so I think the question of ethics is a very important one, and I do want to cover it later on during this session. I think maybe, Nikhil, what you can do is perhaps just quickly maybe walk us through, you know, like start to finish process of how you would use an AI tool, let's say for creating either a social media post or a calendar or like maybe a blog for your company, right? How would you start, let's say in the beginning where you're ideating different topics? How would you then finalize the topic, create content, and then ultimately publish it? Maybe you can dive a little deep into that.
Yeah, sure. And I'm pretty sure the way I'm using it is not the most ideal way of using it. I'm sure there are people who found out better ways of using AI, but honestly, when I started using AI, I used it almost like a search engine, right? Almost like Google. I just put in my problem and see where it lands, and then over time fine-tune it. AI is also as much about the input as it's about the output, right? So just like there's, I think Google's one of the easiest things to ever learn, right? But even Google search has a learning curve. If you need to know like certain tips and tricks to be able to land on the exact most perfect answer for your query. That's something very similar to I felt to an AI tool where, for example, when I started, I was checking out ChatGPT and said, hey, a social calendar is a great example, right? Because it's a restrictive thing. You can have a very straight up kind of input to it, like something like I'm in healthcare, so I'd go and ask, hey ChatGPT or hey Bard, can you tell me the 20 most important dates or social festivals in India that I should participate in from my brand? And it'll give me a list of 20-30 most important festivals that India has, and I can post them on my calendar. And then go a step further if I want to go into more nuance. Okay, can you tell me about all the festivals that have the word doctor in it, or nurses in it, or health in it? Then it'll give me more I think deeper things. So that's one way I've used them. In the other way to use it as copy, literally to create something, is like Copy.ai, that hey Copy.ai, I need to send an email to a bunch of HRs talking about Even's new B2B product launch. Here are the 3 features that I want to highlight in the email, and a couple of other prompts. And then it'll give me like it's a little bit of a format, and then I can edit it if I want to, or use it the way it suggests. For me, most of my applications have been on text-based generative AI, to be very honest. I haven't seen a lot of success with visual or video. Like I used this platform called Pictory a while ago, which is also an AI platform for video creation, which is freaking horrible. Like the video selection there, I would never use it, right? So that is far away because their libraries haven't been built as strongly as say a ChatGPT or a Bard would have been. So I think there's different use cases, different applications around different formats. For me, text-based AI, I think, is is far more ahead in the curve in terms of output. Of course, because of the number of parameters, right, that they already have. Like ChatGPT apparently uses 100 billion parameters in the GPT-3 version, and they're talking about a GPT-4 where it's going to be about 10 trillion parameters. So yeah, I don't know how much Shakespeare the Bard is looking at, but yeah, I think that's also because of the libraries that exist, right? Because generative AI is also essentially consolidating all the information in the internet and then making process decisions on it, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's very insightful. And Sharmila, I would love to get your thoughts on what Nikhil just shared in terms of the different applications, use cases. But more so, I wanted to understand one aspect which we haven't really we haven't covered really yet, which is more from a personal productivity standpoint. So far, we have been talking mostly about the impact we have been creating at work through AI, right? But there are a lot of other tools, I mean, these have existed in the market. For example, just even I think it's called the Google Nest or Google Home, which is a voice assistant, and you can give it commands to kind of, set meetings up on your calendar and, do various things where you don't have to actually do those mundane tasks of, going on your computer and, doing this stuff, which takes like a minute or two, but with the voice assistant, it might take a couple of seconds or less than that, right? And there might be other tools which are just generally deemed very helpful from a personal productivity standpoint, like to do apps and stuff. So how do you see people using AI for personal productivity so that they can enhance the quality of their life and just overall efficiency with which they do things?
Sure, Arjun. That's a great question, right? The personal productivity part. So we do have existing tools, right? So we do have Google Assistant. We had Alexa, and there are applications like Maps, which definitely help us in our day-to-day life. But how do we actually see generative AI being used? And then as a byproduct we have tasks that we are telling to generative AI. So typically, let me just give you an example here, right? So nowadays we are seeing requests, we are seeing businesses that actually want to see how can they give tasks to generative AI. So we are not at that stage yet. Generative AI, at least the text part, is just used for generating content and then summarizing code and so on and so forth. But can it really integrate with the downstream applications? That will be the real value add, and that's the future that we can see, right? So it's just the tip of the iceberg that we are here. The day it integrates with other applications, the other downstream tasks, then we will be able to see a lot of productivity, a lot of efficiency, and it will decrease a lot of our time that we spend on mundane tasks. But we are not there yet, but we are going in the right direction is what I would say.
Tools specifically for your own personal productivity or seen amongst your network people using that have actually made an impact in their life?
Well, honestly, I'll be honest. No, not a lot of, like, I think to do productivity things used a lot of, I've seen my UI or AI usage around like more office oriented work rather than personal productivity. But I know there are certain tools that can help you manage a lot of the tasks, but I kind of echo what Sharmila said a lot, right? Where how well it kind of connects downstream to all my daily everyday usage apps is what's key, right? If I can give it, and also like there is not Indians, like human beings are like creatures of routine, right? So there is at certain level you can automate a lot of your daily tasks. You can tell somebody to wake me up at this time, book me a cab at this time, or remind me to have water every 3 hours or some shit like that. But I personally haven't used it. I'm a little old school in that. But I'm sure there are like, I guess I'm not the best person to honestly answer this. Yeah.
Okay, no, fair enough. I think we've covered a lot around what the potential of AI is and how it can be leveraged, to make an impact at work or in your personal life. I think it's time to talk a little bit about what we alluded to earlier, which is the potential risks, the downsides that can come with this new tech. And, it is easy to get lost in the hype and forget about, what you may be losing out on while you are gaining so much on this technology. So I think the number one question, before we get to the ethics of, let's say whether you actually own the content that you create using AI. I mean, that's a very huge and complex topic to cover, and I don't know if there's a right answer. But I think the one that really, itches me, and I have heard from a lot of people, is this kind of technology going to dumb us down? Is it going to actually make us, less skilled at what we have done so far? Because we are outsourcing a lot of the creative thinking and cognitive development that happens within our brains while we are trying to generate content or generate any new things, right? Now, there's a lot of opinions on these. I would love to understand, Sharmila, what you think about this technology having a potential downside impact on people's learning capabilities and just cognitive development overall.
Yes, Arjun, a great point here, right? So definitely now instead of we researching things, it would have been good if we would have read the complete 20 pages research paper, understood the nuances and details of it instead of just reading a 5-line summary, right? So definitely our learning is impacted here, but depends on what decision we take. I mean, at the end of the day, the decision is in our hands, right? If I'm really focused, I could rather go ahead and read this. So the decision is on ours. There could definitely be an impact, but we'll have to be mindful and make sure that we use the generative AI capabilities only after we give the first shot in any task. If I'm writing a code or if I'm writing a blog, let me be creative. Let me give it a first shot, and then let me hear out what the Gen AI tools have to say, right? So that's one thing that I could probably think about. And Arjun, to your other point on pitfalls, right? I mean, apart from the legal issues, the accountability, the authenticity of the data, the content that they are providing is really questionable, because we've seen cases wherein these Gen AI tools actually hallucinate, which means they give the answers so confidently, but they are so super confident, and we also trust them, but behind the scenes the answers are not correct. They are factually incorrect responses. So we really have to double check the answers. I mean, we just can't take in the answers, and if it's a blog, if it's a social media content, probably that's fine. But in case if that's something else that I am accountable for, so probably I'll have to make sure that I am really accountable. I do the research and then present it in my work. So that accountability, authenticity is something that we'll have to take care of. And the content, right? So we really don't know what data was used to train these generative AI models that are available today, right? I think Nikhil brought up a great point. The responsible AI, the ethical AI piece, right? So one key point here is bias. If the data is biased, we have typically seen a lot of use cases wherein if we give in garbage data, I mean, the data could be absolutely good, but it might not perform well on certain sections of the population. I mean, we have seen cases wherein the model performs very well on white skinned people but not on dark skinned people. So there is a bias there. So we've seen a lot of examples there. So we will have to be, in case if that model is generating content for me, then I'll have to make sure that I review that content. So that bias, fairness, responsible AI, ethical thing is something that we will have to think about as well.
Points, and there's just, I think we're just scratching the surface because there's so much to cover on, what the potential downsides are going to be. I think, one of the
there's
tweets
a
that
little bit
came
I want to
from,
add there as well. I think like this from
yeah,
I think what you said, right, dumbing us down perspective, I genuinely think that's a hoot, right? Because like you can't fight technology, right? That's stupid, like to be very honest. Like people, again, like when we made the first machine, people said we'll not be skilled anymore. Now we won't be able to make things with our hands. but you don't need to, right? There is somebody else who's doing it, and you can then focus on other tasks. Similarly, when Google became Google, right? Everybody said it'll dumb us down because now we're just searching for shit on the internet and just putting it up in our project reports. We're not working. That's not happened, right? In 2023, it's the look at where we are from a technological advancement perspective. By that logic, you and I, like people like you and I, should have been the dumbest people on the planet, right? Because we went through that phase of copying everything from Wikipedia for school projects, for example. So I think that's honestly, I love how people jump to conclusions so fast, right? It's like it's not even been scratching the tip of the iceberg, and then we've kind of made like this huge shosha around that, yeah, AI will replace all human jobs and like will make us dumb. I don't think that's correct. The one thing that humans know is how to figure out to get the information that they require in the easiest possible manner. That's what human beings know. We'll figure it out. Like I actually had written a paper a while ago on how, if you look at reading, right, just the act of reading a book, that's reduced drastically over the last 2 decades. But has that made people dumber? No, because I can go to YouTube and figure out what I need to know. I don't need to buy a book or read a book for it. Similar, if I can get my information, how does it matter which format I'm getting it in, right? So similarly, if I get the job done, it doesn't matter if I'm taking a little bit of help from somebody else, because I also then free up that amount of time, that amount of mental bandwidth, and can probably create better quality output on my own, on the back of, using some tools like this. So I think that's a little bit of, again, like a far cry to say that this will make us dumb. I don't think it will. It also, again, like it's personal thing, right? Like if you want to be lazy and dumb, you will be lazy and dumb at the end of the day.
And I just don't think anybody can say with full certainty right now exactly what will happen. I mean, for example, when even social media came out, initially people were just talking about how it will connect everybody in the world, which it did to a large extent. You can literally, just slide into people's DMs on Instagram or tweet at them, right? But at the same time, it did lead to a big mental health epidemic across the world, right, where people started comparing their lives to others. So I mean, nobody really can predict, not even the people who are inventing the technology can know how people are going to use that tech for different use cases. So I think a lot of it is yet to be seen. Before I move on, I just want to share this with everybody who's in the room. Guys, please feel free to share any questions you have around the potential of AI with regard to your specific work situation, or how you're using it, in your personal life, or any questions you have for Sharmila or Nikhil. Feel free to share them in the chat section. We would be taking them up very soon, and would love to hear from you also, that we can make it a little more interactive and participative. Now, the other thing that I wanted to just talk about here is, how generative AI can be used specifically for, career transition. So far we have talked about career growth, right? One of the things that Pivot specializes in is helping people, make drastic transitions, let's say from a role or industry standpoint, or even just changing your jobs. So there are a couple of things that people have to do when they're doing this, right? Number one, you have to, for example, understand which career is best for you. You have to upskill yourself in case you're making a drastic kind of a jump, and then you have to apply for jobs. So you have to prepare your CV, cover letter, all of these different things. Do you, Sharmila, I would love to maybe hear from you if you have seen folks using generative AI, or just AI in general, that have helped them in their career transitions in any form or fashion.
A great question here, Arjun. Right. So I have seen resumes being written. So you could definitely have resume content, like some content about a project, like typically you either fake it, or it's your actual project, right? So in case if you're faking it, so what sort of content do you want to write? So typically for a machine learning resume, the things that we particularly look is the numbers, and the details of how they implemented and so on, right? So if these details can be asked to a generative AI tool or model, then it might help the folks who are planning to transition the career to the respective career space, right? And that's the first thing that I have on resume. And the second thing is that during your preparation, right, I mean, it is a continuous phase. You give interviews, you might fail, and then you try again. You need a buddy here. So probably, in case if you don't have, or if you're unable to connect to your real buddies, if your professional colleagues are all really professional, and if you're disconnected from your personal friends, and you're unable to talk to someone regarding your technology or career transition, then this is a good option. I mean, probably, though you might not have a really continued conversation that like you would have with a buddy, but these Gen AI tools, what I can see here, would definitely help in the preparation. And probably give me one tough example, or give me a difficult problem, or in this language related to this topic. So probably it could give you that, and it could help you correct that as well. I think it could act as your buddy while preparing for interviews.
Yeah, that's a very, very impactful use case, I would say, because a lot of times people, what we have seen is they just try to wing it. They just don't, I mean, they prepare perhaps themselves for a few questions before interviews, but they don't get very good feedback as to how they're actually performing. So I think getting some, you know, early feedback on the kind of answers you should be giving for these interview questions, I think that could be quite game changing for sure. Nikhil, what about you? Have you seen people using this for career transitions? And if not, like, are there specific areas within, I would say, like networking, upskilling, or job search where you see a huge potential for this tech?
Yeah, no, I think again, like early days for me to be able to see how people have used it, but what like some possible application that I can also think of, so in alignment with what Sharmila said, right, about say resume building, and especially when you want to like pivot, see how nicely I've slided in the brand name, but the way, if you want to pivot, right, like what kind of resumes work in an X industry versus a Y industry, right? If I'm say applying for a copywriting job, how should I showcase my portfolio versus if I'm applying for a data analyst position, right? There are two very different kind of ways to approach it. So stuff like that. I think gathering information and being able to like learn the things in the tips of the trade a little more easier would be also one way. If I'm say a data analyst trying to move to a copywriter's world, okay, having a flair for writing is one thing. I could be a great writer, but because I've been in the world of data, I may not have been exposed to all the wonderful advertising that's happened in the world. Can I use AI to just have an easy access to the library or see what learnings or what core insights I can derive from there? Things like that. I think just like skill building at a very in a very easy manner would be something that I could also like look at it as from a possibilities perspective. What Sharmila said about that buddy is actually really cool, right? Like that's really interesting how you could have literally a person. I wouldn't have ever thought of it. So no, but I think that could also then go into just keeping somebody a little more positive, if that buddy can be used in that sense as well. Because like job hunts can be draining, right? They can be exhausting both from a physical perspective, a mental perspective. It's a huge blow on your ego. Sometimes you may be the cat's whiskers in your industry, but when you're trying to go out, you'll be like, hey, nobody's even like paying attention. It could be very, very draining. So this buddy kind of a person, look at me, this tool could be helpful in terms of just keeping yourself a little afloat and trying to understand how you keep yourself positive in these kind of different things. Yeah, I think like this again, like very top of the head kind of application areas, but I'm pretty sure there's some more cool ways that you can use AI for job switching.
Yeah,
or even like getting say libraries of contacts. If AI system can, because right now I have to go across different places to build a network to figure out say email IDs. If an AI system can help me build a library of say the top 20 HR professionals in the world of data analytics, and I can with their profile links, then what it does is it helps me go to individually each of them, figure out what ticks them, create personalized messages, and then be able to probably land a conversation much more easy than just a cold message.
Yeah, I think the possibilities and use cases are really endless. And, with regard to the interview questions, Sharmila, that you were talking about, I think we have Partha in the room who said, he used ChatGPT to interview him and it gave great questions and sample answers. So, I mean, I think it's already there. Some of it is already happening. People are already using it. They have discovered how to use ChatGPT, other AI tools to their advantage for job search. Um, I think the other thing which has come up, and this is a question from Ashwini as well, is the whole topic around, I don't know if copyright and plagiarism is the right thing, but let's say I'm using AI tools for, resume building, writing a cover letter. Um, and I'm presenting it to a bunch of employers, right? Obviously I'll be well versed with what the AI has written because I'll be reviewing it. But is there some sort of either ethical dilemma or a potential risk of saying that yes, I wrote this cover letter, or I wrote my own resume, when it was actually a third party tool that wrote it? And could the prospective employers even identify the difference between AI written content versus just personally written content? I think that's very hard unless you're interviewing somebody whose way of verbal communication is very drastically different compared to their written communication. So I mean, again, we are getting into a little bit of complex area here, but would you advise people to significantly enhance their written communication compared to where they actually are using AI tools and then having that risk of employers finding out later?
Starting up a hornet's nest.
I mean, this was a question that came up from Ashwini. She directly, or he or she directly sent it to me. How can we identify the AI content versus personal content, and how will it affect my job search? Right. So it's
Okay.
a brilliant question.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are technical ways of identifying if this was written by a model or if this was written by a person. So technically, right? So there is a certain amount of randomness in the way we write content or in the way we talk. I mean, there is a feature, a performance metric called perplexity. I wouldn't go into the details, but it actually predicts what is the next word. And the way humans write, humans talk is random. The perplexity is random, while the way the models write is very fluent. So if you measure that metric, you will be able to understand, okay, whether this was written by a model or whether it was written by a human. So that's the technical aspect, right? But in case of you want to update in your resume, you will have to take the accountability. So the accountability is the key thing, right? So though you would have copied it from any of the Google, any of the other websites, or you would have taken it from a Gen AI model, the accountability lies on you. Whatever metric you're writing, whatever approach you're writing, that I solved this problem using these many languages, and this was the approach that I went ahead. Whatever you're writing, you will have to substantiate with your learnings. You will have to be confident enough to talk about that in your interviews. So the accountability at the end of the day lies with you. It's not with the model. Let the model write any crap, but the accountability lies with you. Ashwini, yeah.
I think that's a great answer to that question. And I think, again, we are still uncovering the different layers of complexities around this. So I think what you shared around accountability and making sure that your ultimate opinions, views, and way of verbal communication aligns with what you have generated on paper using AI. I think that's quite critical. At least I would think so. Nikhil, what are your thoughts? I know it's not the easiest of questions to answer.
No, it definitely isn't. But I think of course, side with most of the things Sharmila said. There's only one thing that I think I have a slightly nuanced take on, which is the written and verbal communication to match. I think there are two things at play here, right? One is the stuff that you're using it for, and say in the context of a job hunt, the job that you're applying for, there's a lot of context that needs to be built there. Say, for example, if Arjun could be a data science person and he could be brilliant with his job, but he just sucks at presenting himself. Now that shouldn't come in the way of him landing up his dream job, because for the core skills that are required for the job, Arjun is literally the best in the country, for example. But he, for the life of him, can't figure out how to write a cover letter. He's just rambling on, putting all sorts of shit, and nobody's kind of reacting, right? That's wherein you can use, say, AI tools to just say structure your thoughts in a better manner, which is coherent and which is easier or more fluid to understand. Similar applications in those. Yeah, if you're a copywriter and using AI tool to write a cover letter, then yeah, then that's, I feel, an ethical issue, because your job role is to write. But if your job role is to do something completely else, and that's wherein a lot of us, unfortunately, a lot of us Indians also, like, there is a little bit of presentation issue that a lot of us have, right? We're still kind of evolving in terms of our overall exposure to the world and presentation styles, etc. But we are the most brilliant minds in the world, right? Why should that hold us back from getting something where we don't really require to speak the best English, for example? I think that's just the one nuance I had on what Sharmila said. Everything else I completely agree with. There has to be a sense of accountability. There has to be a sense of self-governance, self-policing that needs to be done at the end of the day. And honestly, fake it till you make it only works till you break it, right? That's the fact, right? You can use it till a certain point, but at some level, shit will break down. People will realize you're not what you played out to be. So I think you can only get as far away as you can using just like always constantly depending on AI. There's also, I don't know if you know about this term that I was again reading through for this workshop, but it was pretty interesting. This phrase I read, which was HITL, which is human in the loop, right? Wherever AI needs a human in the loop, because you need to take a decision on what model to use, B, what that model is throwing out, whether it's full of garbage, whether you need to edit it, put your own spin into it, etc., etc. Right now, the world hasn't come to a place where just cyborgs are ruling, right? We need a person from one level of intervention. That will also apply to something like this, wherein you can't just use AI to or just kind of completely rely on it to work for you. But yeah, I think ethically, cover letters and like things like that, I don't really mind. Personally, if a person comes to me and says that, I wrote a cover letter using ChatGPT, I'd be like, hey, that's interesting. Let's talk more and let's understand what you did. It's also about the person you're kind of working with. I feel, I personally think the only place where I have an ethical dilemma, and I'm saying a dilemma because I don't know where I am at, is the final output being created by a machine where human creativity is just not kind of looked at, where and human creativity could be anything, right? Like writing a code is also human creativity at the end of the day. If somebody comes to me and just has written a whole website using a code given by ChatGPT, then I don't know how good of a developer that person is. Will they be able to troubleshoot? Will they be able to diagnose complex issues? Will they be able to understand human interface design as much as you would like them to? Similarly, if you're a designer and you've only used DALL-E to create things, I don't know how your hand actually works, whether you understand the idea of color, whether you understand the idea of lines, etc. That's the area where I have a little bit of an ethical dilemma for. Otherwise, I think helping you, again, like solve your life's problems in a better manner, I think that's literally what technology does, right? Like you can end up saying microwave has killed the whole art of heating up food, but the fact is, if you're coming home at 1 o'clock in the night, you're not going to bloody take karchi out and start reheating things, right? That's made to make your life convenient. And you've used it in a certain manner, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. I feel like we've gone so deep into this that, I hope people who are here can actually retain a lot of these things, because it's just a very new topic and there's so many layers to this. So maybe, I think we have covered a lot of ground here. We can start to wrap up this session perhaps. And I think the best way to do that is perhaps, summarize some of the key points that we have talked about today. So Sharmila, maybe starting with you, could you share perhaps one thing that people should keep in mind when they are using AI for personal or career growth and productivity, right? One best practice that you would recommend them to do when they are thinking about leveraging AI, and one potential risk that they should be mindful of and stay away from, again, for the same kind of use case.
Okay, sure. So one potential use that I would like to summarize here is to start with yourself. Let the neurons in your brain think. Let your brain think, and you give it a first shot, because at the end of the day you'll be the one who will be giving interviews, right? So whatever resume we write, whatever we write in our LinkedIn posts and so on, right, you need to answer the technical questions that are being asked in the interview. So for that, at least you need to be you need to take it upon you. So first give it a shot, and then go to these Gen AI tools is what I would recommend. And seeing a risk, right, and overuse is a risk. So once you are over dependent on a technology, you are actually reducing the creativity, the power of what your brain or humans can really do, right? So whatever the Gen AI tools that we have is all built on the data that is available till now. So whatever humans have created till now, that's converted into data, and these Gen AI tools have actually learned that models being built on top of it. But no one doesn't know what humans can really do. What is the human capability, right? So Gen AI tools can only do what humans have done before this point. But it depends on you. If you really be creative, you can actually do, only humans can do what something that has not been done before, right? What models have not done before, what humans have not done before, only humans can be creative and think in that direction, and come up with something really new. So don't ever overuse these tools. Yes, of course, writing cover letters and small code snippets, I think that's absolutely fine, but don't be over dependent on these Gen AI tools is what I would recommend.
Did insights and guidance. I think I love that. And something definitely to keep in mind, the part you said about starting with yourself. Don't outsource, don't be dependent too much in the beginning when you're thinking about writing or generating any new thing. Nikhil, yeah, I think the same question.
Yeah, I think one thing going into this is like Sharmila said, start with things. I would say have an open mind about this new technology, or not a new technology, but this new application of this old technology. I think going into the world, there is no way you can ignore the possibilities that artificial intelligence brings, but don't write it off as something as like just evil corp trying to take over the world. I think just when you're using AI, have an open mind, because again, a human being's creativity is limitless. And I think if you have an open mind when going into something, you can figure out how to use something for your benefit. And who knows, that might add a lot of value to you. So that'd be one like big, like 30,000 feet advice that I'd give to people. I think potential pitfalls similar to what Sharmila said, right? Like don't over depend on things like tools like these. Use it as there is a reason why it's called a tool. It helps you get to a certain place. It ain't the final place, right? So use it like it's supposed to be used. Use it as a tool to reach your final destination. Don't think that will do the job for you completely, and you've just kind of you're just chilling. I think that's something we need to be very cognizant of. And again, like the whole idea of AI being, I love what Sharmila said, right? AI today is what we were till yesterday, or what we were till a second ago, because they're now doing things in real time. But the fact is, it's always historical. No AI tool is sitting and thinking, hey, now what's the next planet we should figure out? Or what's the next satellite we should launch? Or what's the next advertising campaign for Coca-Cola we should do, right? Like that's human beings thinking about things in a creative manner. And that nothing can replace, I feel. Yeah, I think there is immense possibility in adding value to your everyday life using generative AI or AI in general. And if used in the right manner, I think it really adds to overall, I think, world economies, and make us more productive and make us more happy, have more time. If I can save 10 minutes of my day, I can spend time with my niece, spend time with my wife, things like that. I think you have to think like that when you're using a tool like this as well.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I think lots and lots to still think about, but I think what we can do at this stage is start using all of the different tools which are quite user friendly and fairly intuitive to get started with, similar to Google. So completely agree with all of the points that you guys have made today here. I think with that, we are coming to the end of this session. I think it was a really insightful one. I don't normally think we have uncovered so much like deep insights and unique insights which people haven't thought or learned about from elsewhere. So I hope it was helpful for people who attended this. I just want to thank Sharmila and Nikhil for joining us. Thanks guys so much. You have been really gracious with all your experience sharing and learnings and everything. So I really appreciate it. And we have also shared Nikhil and Sharmila's links to connect with them in case you would like any guidance or feedback on how you can use AI for your work related growth or your career transition. Feel free to reach out to them. I'm also sharing the link for our platform, which is www.mypivot.work. In case you're making any sort of a career transition from one role or industry to another, do check it out and reach out to us in case you would like any support. Yeah, that I would like to wrap it up. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining in, and have a great rest of the evening.
Great. Thanks, Arjun. Thanks, Sharmila. Great being on the panel with you.
Sure. Thank you so much. It was a great session, Arjun, and yeah, nice to be on the panel with you, Nikhil. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye, everyone.